Hello and welcome to the Reykjavik Newsdesk. I'm Andie Sophia Fontaine, and these are the weekend's top stories in Iceland. If you like the content that you see here, be sure and like and subscribe. And if you really like the content that you see here, check out the Patreon link in the description. And now, the weekend's top stories. Sudden and massive bird deaths, especially in the north of Iceland, have been baffling scientists. The photo that you see here is of some of the cartage. In this case, these are kittiwakes, but other species of birds have been affected as well. More samples need to be taken to determine the exact cause of death, but bird flu at least has been ruled out. One interesting note about these, though, is that some of these massive die-offs are taking place in places where these particular bird species are not known for being. I thought that was really interesting because, well, this is a photo I took last Saturday in downtown Reykjavik of an oyster catcher. Now, I cannot remember the last time I saw an oyster catcher in an urban setting. This is a bird you normally associate with the distant countryside, like in particular down near the shore. So, I don't know, maybe that's connected in some way. But in any event, here's hoping that the scientists get to the bottom of what's causing these massive deaths, because it is pretty concerning. So we know a lot about how your average Icelander feels about fin whaling, but what about the people with the legal authority to stop it? That is, Iceland's Parliament. Well, Heimildin asked every single member of Iceland's 63-seat parliament whether they are for or against the hunting of fin whales this summer, and the answers that were received were pretty enlightening. In all, 39 MPs responded to this question, and 25 of them were against hunting fin whales this summer. Only 8 MPs said they were categorically in favor of the whale hunt. 6 would not give a decisive answer, and 24 either didn't or wouldn't answer the question. Now, before you get too excited, bear in mind that Iceland has a parliamentary system, as I mentioned. And for those of you who have a parliamentary system in your countries, you might be familiar with the fact that if your MP is in the ruling coalition, they can get a lot of things done. But if your MP is in the opposition, there's not a lot they can really do in terms of making legislative action. So let's take a look at how the MPs of the 3 parties in the ruling coalition, that is the Left Greens, the Independence Party, and the Progressive Party, answered this question. Of the 8 Left Green MPs, 6 of them answered this question. 4 of them said they were categorically against continuing the fin whale hunt this summer, and 2 of them, namely Prime Minister Katrín Jakobsdóttir and Minister of Fisheries Svandís Svavarsdóttir, would not give a decisive answer to this question. Only 6 of the 17 Independence Party MPs responded for them in favor of continuing the fin whale hunt. Only 3 of the 13 Progressive Party MPs responded, 2 of which were in favor of continuing the hunt, and 1 which kind of both sided the issue. So as you can see, it appears as though there's a bit of divisiveness within the ruling coalition over this issue. But as I reported, it is ultimately up to the Minister of Fisheries to decide whether or not to renew the whaling license for the one company, I emphasize one company, which is engaging in fin whaling in Iceland. And as I also reported, what we do know is that the fin whaling hunt breaks Iceland's animal welfare laws. It's not a profitable business. Most Icelanders believe that it hurts the country's image, and it has neither historic nor cultural roots in Iceland. So with all this being the case, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. So remember that artist who created a fake website pretending to be the fishing giant Samherji? Well, Samherji didn't take that very well. As I've reported, Samherji was found through a whistleblower a few years ago to have been engaging in bribing Namibian officials in exchange for lucrative fishing quotas in Namibian waters. And while Namibia has been very diligent about tracking down, arresting, and charging the officials involved, not a single person in Samherji has yet been held responsible. So, this Icelandic artist, who goes by Oddi, set up a website, samherji.co.uk, that looked very much like an official Samherji website and had posted on it an apology, speaking from the voice of Samherji, apologizing for their corrupt practices. This, Oddi later revealed, was his graduation project, and Well, Samheri didn't take this super well because they're taking Odie to court in Britain because the website itself was registered in the UK, and there's been a temporary emergency injunction issued on the website at the time of this reporting. Now, we could get philosophical about the purposes of artistic intent and its use of satire and parody in order to criticize the powerful. Instead, I'd like to direct your attention to this review of a new book about the Samheri scandal. I've linked to it in the description. This review is absolutely incredible. It's very illuminating, and if you want to get a really good breakdown of what the scandal is all about from the point of view of Namibians, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you check it out. So do go into the description and read it. Minister of Justice Jon Gunnarsson, who oversees the police, apparently has no idea how many guns the police bought, nor of what kind. As I reported, the police had bought a lot of guns in preparation for the two-day Council of Europe summit, and then nothing was known about what happened to these guns until members of parliament directly asked the Minister of Justice what was going on. Are we going to sell them? Were they returned? Are we keeping them? What? Well, Jon Gunnarsson said, yeah, we're absolutely keeping the guns. And on further questioning, he was asked, okay, well, how many guns did the police buy and what kind of guns are they? It's pretty natural questions. And he said he didn't know, that he didn't mix himself into the affairs of the police, which is a kind of a strange position to take. The Social Democrats, Samfylkingin, have been polling really well, and if that continues through elections in 2025, they could do well enough to become a part of the ruling coalition government. Now, in case you weren't fully aware, the Social Democrats have had Iceland joining the EU as a part of their party platform pretty much from their inception. And in fact, when they were leading the government from 2009 to 2013, they had started accession talks with the European Union, and those negotiations were pretty significantly advanced by the time that the Social Democrats were voted out of power in 2013. Shortly thereafter, the new government, which was comprised of the Independence Party and the Progressive Party, put those accession talks on hold, and they are currently on ice. So with the Social Dems polling as well as they are now, this naturally raised the question, well, if these polling figures hold up and are reflected on election day, are we going to resume EU talks? Well, Social Democrat MP Johan Paul Johansson said that that probably won't be the case. We probably won't be gunning for applying and beginning the accession process into the European Union within the first election term. Rather, the party will focus on more immediate matters, such as housing and healthcare and transportation. Joining the European Union is still very much a part of their platform, but it looks like it's going to be taking a back burner in terms of like their top priorities should they come to power. In case you were curious, the question of whether or not Iceland should join the EU has pretty much been on a 50-50 scale amongst the general population for years now. And so it would probably take a significant amount of convincing to tip the scales on the side of in favor of joining anyway. Lastly, I have some good news to report for people who enjoy bringing children to volcanoes. The parliamentary ombudsman has concluded that the police actually had no legal authority to ban children under 12 from visiting the Meradalar eruptions in Suðurnes. Now, this ban had been put in place for a number of reasons, amongst them that volcanoes do emit toxic gases, the sheer numbers of people who are visiting the eruptions at the time, and how difficult it can be to keep track of everybody, let alone very little people running around in the area. However, it turns out that the police did not have the authorities to say no children under 12 in the volcano area. So, even though the eruptions in Suðurnes have more or less fizzled out, if there's another eruption in Iceland, and there surely will be, and you happen to be in Iceland, and you've got little kids with you, rest assured, you can take them to visit the eruption site without being hassled by the cops. I also want to thank everyone who attended last Saturday's Ask Me Anything session, which is for my $20 patrons. It was a really great time, and you can catch the live recording of it on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. I'm also happy to announce the results of the viewer poll, which is for $15 and $20 patrons. It's a poll that decides what the topic of my next single topic video is going to be. Well, the results are in, and the next single topic video that I'm going to do is some common but untrue myths about Iceland debunked. I am so looking forward to doing this. I'm so glad that this was the topic that ended up winning the poll. I was rooting for it, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope you find it fun and educational too. In any event, that's all from me at Newsdesk. Again, be sure and like and subscribe, and if you really like the content that you see here, check out the Patreon and the link below to see what kind of goodies you can get just by kicking a little extra coin our way. Which reminds me, I want to thank Corinne Vasquez, Marion Ward, Christopher Hunter, Marianne Moores, Kimberly McDaniel, Iceman98, and Octavia Hund Jonsdottir for being patrons on the $20 level, Laura Johnson for being a patron on the $15 level, and Stephen Ellis and Vivi Carvajal Schaffner for being patrons on the $10 level. You folks rock. That's all from me. Be good to each other.